to play.
Casablanca with Ingrid Bergman romantically synthesizes the Bogart so popular today. The skeptical cynic, suspicious of causes, wearing toughness and self-interest to conceal his shattered ideals.
Well, I know how you feel about me, but I'm asking you to put your feelings aside for something more important.
Do I have to hear again what a great man your husband is, what an important cause he's fighting for?
It was your cause, too. In your own way, you were fighting for the same thing.
I'm not fighting for anything anymore except myself. I'm the only cause I'm interested in.
And if he did not leave her in Marseille or in Iran, he certainly won't leave her in Casablanca.
Whatever gave you the impression that I might be interested in helping Laszlo escape?
Because, my dear Ricky, I suspect that under that cynical shell, you're at heart a sentimentalist. Oh, laugh if you will, but I happen to be familiar with the record. Let me point out just 2 items. In 1935, you ran guns to Ethiopia. In 1936, you fought in Spain on the loyalist side.
I got well paid for it on both occasions.
The winning side would have paid you much better.
Problems of the world are not in my department. I'm a saloon keeper.
My friends in the underground tell me that you've quite a record. You ran guns to Ethiopia. You fought against the fascists in Spain.
What of it?
Isn't it strange that you always happen to be fighting on the side of the underdog?
Rick, help me.
Be a fool, you can't get away.
Rick, hide me. Do something. You must help me, Rick. Do something. Rick!
When they come to get me, Rick, I hope you'll be more of a help.
I'd stick my neck out for nobody.
Do you mind if I ask you a few questions? Unofficially, of course.
Make it official if you like.
What is your nationality?
I'm a drunkard.
Underneath, there's a soft heart, vulnerable to love. Casablanca establishes Bogart as a romantic star.
Who are you really, and what were you before? What did you do, and what did you think, huh?
We said no questions.
Here's looking at you, kid.
The world will always welcome lovers as time goes by.
Henri wants us to finish this bottle and then 3 more. Says he'll water his garden with champagne before he'll let the Germans drink it.
This ought to take the sting out of being occupied, doesn't it, Mr. Richards?
You said it. Here's looking at you, kid.
I can't fight it anymore. I ran away from you once. I can't do it again. Oh, I don't know what's right any longer. You have to think for both of us. For all of us.
All right. I will. Here's looking at you, kid.
I wish I didn't love you so much.
If that plane leaves the ground and you're not with him, you'll regret it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon and for the rest of your life.
But what about us?
We'll always have Paris. We didn't have. We lost it until you came to Casablanca. We got it back last night.
When I said I would never leave you.
And you never will. But I've got a job to do, too. Where I'm going, you can't follow. What I've got to do, you can't be any part of. Ilsa, I'm no good at being noble, but it doesn't take much to see that the problems of 3 little people don't amount to a hill of beans in this crazy world. Someday you'll understand that. Now. He's looking at you, kid.
More than a quarter of a century after the filming of Casablanca, Ingrid Bergman comments on what it was like to work with Bogart.
We made a picture together called Casablanca. I was delighted because I had admired Bogart very much as an actor. I found him fascinating. There was something mysterious about him. And it was dangerous. It was danger around him. And with all his toughness and roughness, you still felt that behind it all, there was a tender heart. Well, we started the picture, and he was very polite, and he worked beautifully, naturally, but I always felt there was a distance It was like he was behind a wall. I was intimidated by him, and there was a picture running called The Maltese Falcon, and I used to go and see that very often during the shooting of Casablanca, because I felt I got to know him a little better through that picture. Maybe he was unhappy because it wasn't easy to shoot Casablanca. We had not a finished script, and it was made up as we went along, and we never knew how it was going to end. As a matter of fact, we were quite surprised, all of us, when at the end it won the Academy Award. I used to have a standard joke when people asked me, tell me about Bogart and how is he and how is it to work with him and all that. I used to say, yes, well, I have kissed him, but I don't know him at all.
When I hear people talk about Bogart, it's like listening to people discussing the Sphinx for the first time of seeing it.
Patrick O'Moore, actor and close friend of Bogart.
And nobody knew Bogart quite the same way. He was a very private man. He was a secret man. Not a secretive man, but he was a secret man. And this came out, I think, more when I got to know him better and at sea. And here is a man who really loved the sea. I think this was a way that Bogey had of getting away and being himself. There he was alone. He used to talk about these great forces, the sea, the wind, the sky. And here he was, Bogart. He wasn't pretending to be anything. He was just himself.
In the film To Have and Have Not, something new enters Bogart's life.
Anybody got a match?
Lauren Bacall.
Thanks. And one day, into Bogey's life, galloped this wonderful colt, Betty Bacall. She was long, and she was tall, and she was slender, and we used to call her ladder legs because she was able to walk onto a boat carrying a block of 25 pounds of ice without using the boarding ladder. And he was fascinated by this wonderful creature. And you know what happened.
You know, Steve, you're not very hard to figure. Only at times. Sometimes I know exactly what you're going to say. Most of the time. The other times... The other times you're just a stinker.
What'd you do that for?
I'm wondering whether I'd like it.
What's the decision?
I don't know yet. It's even better when you help. You know you don't have to act with me, Steve. You don't have to say anything, and you don't have to do anything. Not a thing. Oh, maybe just whistle. You know how to whistle, don't you, Steve? You just put your lips together and blow.
In May 1945, Bogey and Baby, as they are called, are married. She is 20, he 45. It's reported that Bogart cried through the ceremony. I guess I'm old-fashioned, he says.
Bogey was
the late Michael Romanoff, whose restaurant provided the Bogarts with a home away from home.
With the advent of his marriage to Betty Bacall, a change came over him. She was inestimable value to him. He used to come into the restaurant around 12:30 every day, One day, Bogey came in without a tie. And I said, Bogey, you're embarrassing me. I don't allow anyone else in, and they'd only point to you and as the exception. And I said, as much as I like you, I don't want you to be an exception. I don't want to put you in that position. He smiled, that strange smile of his, with a touch of a sneer. The next day he came in with a little bow tie that size.
Once he succeeded in
Joseph L. Mankiewicz.
in finding a Bogart that could get away with an awful lot, a Bogart that the world would take. He used that Bogart. He used that Bogart to many, many different ends. But there was another bogey beyond that. There was a bogey who, as time went on, became saddened by an awful lot of what he saw and heard. In terms of the human condition, there again, Hollywood in the 30s and 40s was a very good place to be saddened by the human condition.
Well, listen, soldier.
In Key Largo with Edward G. Robinson, Bogart is a man disillusioned by the human condition.
He knows what he wants, don't you, Rocco?
Sure.
What's that? Tell him, Rocco.
Well, I want,
He wants more, don't you, Rocco?
Yeah, that's it. More. That's right, I want more. Will you ever get enough?
Will you, Rocco?
Well, I never have. No, I guess I won't. Do you know what you want?
Yes, and I had hopes once, but I gave them up.
Hopes for what?
A world in which there's no place for Johnny Rocco.
Soldier, listen to me.
As always, Bogart finally winds up fighting the good cause. Robinson's killed him many times in the past. Now a big star, Bogart strikes back.
I'll tell you what. Suppose I say the money is yours. Yeah. Here, look. Okay, soldier. I got no gun and I'm coming out. Soldier!
The legend of Bogart is of a man going his own way, unbought, fighting for what he believes, refusing to compromise.
All an actor owes his public is a good performance. He owes something to himself, too. His integrity. Can't be a good actor and compromise with that integrity. He's got to be himself, just the way he is. Take a fellow American to a meal.
Humphrey Bogart, in the last decade of his life, creates a series of portraits perhaps unmatched on the screen. Treasure of the Sierra Madre includes an appearance by its director, John Huston, as well as Tim Holt.
What's the joke, Dobbsy? I don't follow you, Dobbsy.
Oh, don't be such a sap. Where did you ever grow up? All right, to make it clear to a dumbhead like you, we take all his goods and go straight up north and leave the old jackass flat.
You aren't serious, are you? You don't really mean what you're saying.
Fred C. Dobbs don't say nothing he don't mean. I know you for what you are. For a long time I've had my suspicions about you. Now I know I've been right.
What suspicions are you talking about?
Oh, you're not putting anything over on me. I see right through you. For a long time you've had it in your mind to bump me off at the first good opportunity and bury me out here in the bush like a dog. So she could take not only the old man's goods, but mine in the bargain.
Why wouldn't I do it right here and now if I meant to kill you?
I'll tell you why. Because you're yellow. You haven't got nerve enough to pull the trigger while I'm looking you straight in the eye.
If you think like that, there's nothing to do but to tie you up every night.
I'll tell you what. I'll make you a little bet. 3 times 35 is 105. I'll bet you $105,000 you go to sleep before I do.
Bogart becomes the king of Hollywood. At the peak of his popularity, the highest paid actor in the world. Still the nonconformist, he says, the only point in making money is so you can tell some big shot where he can go. Glamorous premieres are a part of publicity, and with zest, Bogart, the complete professional, plays the publicity game.
Hollywood was built on glamour, and I think it's getting a little dull around the edges.
I kind of like publicity. I think if I hadn't been an actor, I might have been a publicity man or an advertising man, and it amuses me sometimes to confuse people, especially people here, you know, in the business, as to what I do with my private life and then my life, shall we say, in the newspapers. I feel somewhat the way Miss Katharine Hepburn feels about that. She says she doesn't care what anybody prints as long as it isn't true.
In 1951, Katharine Hepburn and Bogart, accompanied by Lauren Bacall, land in Africa to film John Huston's The African Queen. Hollywood comforts left far behind. The story of the missionary spinster and the drunken boat tender will be filmed under the most trying conditions.
No, there was never any friction between Katie and myself because I love Katie and I think Katie loves me. We got along splendidly. You see, I'm a natural-born griper. I just gripe at everything, but go ahead and do the work, whereas Katie used to drive me crazy. She loved everything. The natives were divine, the heat was divine, everything was divine with Katie, and I used to get kind of sore at her, but only in a mild way. My wife was on Katie's side, and they were both on John Huston's side, so I guess I was the only one who thought it was too hot and too damp, and the food was lousy, and so I was kind of like that angry man in the box. I just drank my scotch and griped.
For The African Queen, Bogey wins an Oscar, the significance of which he characteristically debunks, but adds, "I've been around a long time. Maybe they like me." On television with his family, the old tough guy presents a mellowing image to the world. He really believes in the original concept of the home, says wife Lauren Bacall. He's a rather old-fashioned fellow, and truly a gentle soul.
Bogart was a sack of mush.
Stanley Kramer, producer of the Caine Mutiny.
Underneath that semi-gangster facade was probably the taste of honey. He certainly, in my mind, always managed to have the drop on everybody, mostly because of that facade. I always hesitated to call him Bogey, even though I went through an entire film with him, because I was always afraid that by calling him Bogey, he might think I wasn't entitled to. That makes a difference. Certainly, during the filming of the Caine Mutiny, during our first meeting, he put me on, no doubt about that. On the first evening at dinner, we had a drink. He had more than one. I didn't because I had bad sinus trouble. He was suspicious of people who didn't drink a good deal, and he decided to really go after me. So he asked me what I did around the premises. He knew what I did, whether important or unimportant. I told him that, my job was a kind of a supervisory capacity on the picture, which he knew. He said, well, what do you have to come around in the morning for? Why don't you just, you can drink and stay up and forget the morning. I looked at him for a moment and debated the idea in my mind, and then finally took the bit between my teeth, and I told him, well, my job is to get up in the morning and look out for and watch out for a kind of sawed-off, bald-headed little man, which he was. This broke him up. He absolutely fell on the floor, and I suppose from that time on, we were really fast, very good friends. He played the role of Captain Queeg in the film. He was ideally suited for it. I think his performance was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
I repeat, the key was not imaginary. And I don't know anything about mess boys eating strawberries.
Well, didn't Ensign Harding tell you that the mess boys ate the strawberries?
All that I remember is that he was very grateful for his transfer.
Would it serve any useful purpose to have him testify?
No, don't see any need of that. Now that I recall, he might have said something about mess boys, and then again he might not.
I'm afraid the defense has no other recourse than to produce Ensign Harding.
Now, there's no need for that. I know exactly what he'll tell you. Lies. He was no different from any other officer in the wardroom. They were all disloyal. I tried to run the ship properly with a book, but they fought me at every turn. If the crew wanted to walk around with their shirt tails hanging out, that's all right. Let them. Take the tow line. Defective equipment, no more, no less. But they encouraged the crew to go around scoffing at me and spreading wild rumors about steaming in circles and then old Yellowstain. I was to blame for Lieutenant Merrick's incompetence and poor seamanship. Lieutenant Merrick was the perfect officer, but not Captain Queeg. But the strawberries, that's where I had them. They laughed at me and made jokes. But I proved beyond the shadow of a doubt and with geometric logic that a duplicate key to the wardroom icebox did exist. And I'd have produced that key if they hadn't pulled the Caine out of action. I know now they were only trying to protect some fellow officer. Naturally, I can only cover these things from memory. If I've left anything out, why, just ask me specific questions and I'll be glad to answer them one by one.
Life, every now and then, behaves as if it had seen too many bad movies, when everything fits too well. The beginning, the middle, and the end. From fade in to fade out.
In Joseph Mankiewicz's The Barefoot Contessa, Bogart plays one of his last roles, a world-weary, played-out Hollywood director.
As far as I was concerned, as the creator of a role, he typified to me the kind of rueful sadness that a man of that experience and of that type gets when he looks about him at society and at the way it is going, where it is going. And this, as Bogey grew older, I think he did more and more. I think he got sadder and sadder, but in the typical Bogart way, without self-pity, and with a kind of grimacing smile, a smile that said, well, what the hell do you expect?
In January 1957, with much courage and dignity, Humphrey Bogart died. It was a great shock to his fans. After 75 films, they had seen him die so often, they were sure he was indestructible. His friend and director of 6 of his finest films, John Huston.
When you live and work with a man, you get to know him pretty well. The better I got to know Humphrey Bogart, the more I admired him. He was a very serious man about his work. He took great pride in being an actor. The side, the face that he presented to the world was quite a different one than those who knew him truly well. In truth, he was a very sincere, a deeply humble man, a very faithful man, faithful to his work, his friends, and finally, his family. He was a devoted father, and he loved his wife most dearly. It's a loss to the world, of course, that great talent, but the world can refer to it in the pictures that remain behind. The loss to his family and to his friends is therefore all the greater. There'll never be another Bogart.
Humphrey Bogart was an original. Few film stars during their lifetime have made such an indelible impression on our imagination. Even fewer have remained so remarkably contemporary so long after death. The enormous continuing interest in Bogart is a tribute to his unique qualities as an actor and as a man. it is also a reflection of the uncommon legacy he left behind. For millions of new admirers, his image of cool independence, disdain for hypocrisy, and rejection of sham mark him very much a man for today. Bogart's appeal is international, and throughout the world he has become an almost mythic figure, inspiring emulation. In the French film Breathless, Jean-Paul Belmondo pays rare tribute to Bogey.
Bogey.
But in the words of John Huston, Bogart is quite irreplaceable. And as long as his films remain to be seen and re-seen, he is indestructible.
Might be a good idea for you to disappear from Casablanca for a while. There's a free French garrison over at Brazzaville. I could be induced to arrange a passage.
My letter of transit? I could use a trip. But it doesn't make any difference about our bet. You still owe me 10,000 francs. And that
Bogart lives on. The man and the image on the screen become one.
Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.